Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Welcome to this week in tennis, where we're not going to talk so much about results but about some rackets, strings, pro player stuff, and what's been happening in Madrid. A Masters right now being played. It's a longer format tournament. It seems to take ages. I think the pace is pretty slow, and it doesn't still have that stacked up schedule of a Grand Slam. So I'm not a huge fan of this extended Masters that they're trying with extra days packed in. Not sure what you feel, but it feels like the tournament is longer than it needs to be. And I think if you lose early on, you have to wait quite a while before you play another tournament, depending of course of your ranking, if you're playing challengers or whatnot. But it's a weird format and takes some getting used to. There's been one guy in the spotlight. There's nothing surprising there. Rafa Nadal. He's been playing, he's been winning matches. Last week in Barcelona, he looked a little bit of a shell of a man against Alex de Minaur. I wrote a post about this, whether his retirement is going to happen this year or next year. And the reason for that is that the week after, and 1 week seems to change things around, you know how tennis is. Tsitsipas wins a final against Ruud 1 week, then he loses a final against Ruud the next week, the way it happened with Monte Carlo and Barcelona. But in Nadal's case, he played yesterday against de Minaur again. His first match against this guy, Darwin Blanche, is that his name? I'm not 100% sure, sorry for that. But ranked outside the top 1,000, just outside. Not sure, there were a lot of speculations whether they kind of arranged this match for him to have an easy draw. No idea, but that was very easy for Nadal. However, he still got that big challenge against de Minaur, who doesn't give you anything, runs everything down. And he managed to overcome, thanks a bit to crowd, thanks a bit to some luck, because there were quite a few shots dripping in over on the Aussie side of the net. So he had some luck, but maybe the tennis gods just wanted Rafa to win and keep going. He doesn't have the same spring in his step as he used to have. Of course, this guy is not a spring chicken anymore, but he is still so strong when it comes to finding a way to really inject extra pace in his shots when he needs to. And I really like the way he mixed up his shots and variety of depth and height on the balls. The strategy that he used in this match was very successful, that he hit many high looping, kind of softish for this level topspin balls to de Minaur, which he struggled to really do anything successful with. This is clay, so you can play a bit more slow and strategical if you put enough spin on the ball. And Rafa did that, and then when he got the ball back, he sometimes just went for it, and successfully so. So it was kind of a statement win for Rafa in the end. Surprising to me that he managed to win this match. And you don't really know what to read into it. Is he fine now? Things look fine physically. Or is he struggling? Will he not turn up for the next match? Or will he play a half-assed match due to lack of match practice, or due to lack of physical fitness? We will see. The chapter of Rafa is definitely not finished. That's the reading I have of this situation. One part of him talks about like, oh, it's the last time I played Barcelona, it's the last time I played Madrid. Then you hear him wanting his son, Rafa Jr., to watch him play more, and that means extending their career. And then he also talks about playing the Olympics with Carlos Alcaraz, which would be very cool if that happened, playing doubles there with Carlitos. And that's a real rumor, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen if he's physically fit. And then he also signed up for the Laver Cup in Berlin in September. I thought that would be a pretty nice way to go out, kind of like Roger, in the same way. Maybe we also get like a goosebumps-inducing moment when Roger walks out and they play a last doubles together. You know, again, that would be amazing for Roger and Rafa fans. But I don't know. It seems like he wants to keep playing if his body allows, and we'll see where it goes from here. I don't think even he knows. It all depends day to day, week to week, how his body is feeling, and if his injuries can stay away and allow him to play. I got some questions about Rafa's racket. The specs have been up on Tennis Nerd for a long time. He's, over the years, increased weight to his racket. He's playing with the original mold. This is the first Aero Pro drive that they made for him like around 2004. They did release, as you might know, the Rafa Origin racket, which has, for a retail racket, an insane specification of 370 swing weight, which is pretty much what Rafa plays with. So a strung swing weight of 370. I would say it's unstrung around 340 then, depending on the quality control, of course. I did see a spec of Rafa's racket for this tournament, and I'm going to comment on that. This racket, I must say, is super fun to use. I really like that. Daniel and I did a video about heavy rackets where we test this quite a bit, and we even added weight here, so it's like 380 grams strung. Just a super fun racket, and I love that Babolat actually had the guts to release the Rafa spec. It's not exactly the same mold. This is based on the current Aero 2023 mold. Doesn't matter, plays like a tank. You can really feel like the Rafa power when you play well with this. Your wrist or arm might be tired after an hour, but still, I like it. I think it's cool that they have it and they offer it, even if you want to put it on the wall. The spanner in the works here is that Rafa is now back to playing with this Aero Rafa cosmetic, the 2021 edition, when there was no Origin. His racket is bigger than this. This is the gift shop racket that I bought at the Rafa Nadal Academy when I visited there a few years ago. I love this cosmetic. I think it looks great as well. I like both of these, but maybe this is one of my favorites. And this racket he uses at what looks like a lower spec now. So if you see here on the sticker, it's around 330 swing weight. Of course, when you add strings, you bump up 30 points. That would mean that he has lowered his swing weight a bit. It used to be 370. But maybe if you consider that he uses a 135 gauge RPM blast, like a thicker gauge, that adds a swing weight. So he's still probably up around the 360 high mark. Obviously not the most headlight racket. It's kind of 2 points headlight, his racket, or close to even balance. But it's definitely a very heavy spec, which you can feel if you get one of these. But it's not for the faint of heart, and it might lead to some tennis elbow or some other issue if you're playing with this too much. Though I still love it. Rafa's still playing with this one. Question why might be that he wants to just play with the racket that won his last Grand Slam. Might not be his last Grand Slam, but I think it makes sense for him to be superstitious enough. We know about his water bottles and his pulling pants and all that stuff. He's a superstitious guy. If you read Rafa's biography, you know all this stuff. But it makes sense then that he wants to play with this one where he feels that he has the best history of results. This would be completely new cosmetic in a way. Obviously, it's not Babolats. They're not happy about that. This is what they want to sell. They have an Aero Rafa that is lighter as well, the 290 gram one. Also a good racket. These are good rackets now, but Rafa's using this and they're trying to sell this. This is what tennis manufacturers deal with. We have the same situation with Head and Novak, for example, where Novak usually don't like the Head, the Speed MP White cosmetic for his very different Pro stock that I've talked about ad nauseum. So then they make like a black version for him at some point so he can play with a racket that he enjoys. Some players find the white paint to, I've heard two reasons. It's either it like bothers them when there's lights on the court and the reflections bother their eyes. And I also heard, I don't know if this is true, that they get, worried that the opponent sees their swing or their shot, which sounds a bit silly to me, if the color is white. It's just like highlights the racket more. No idea why he doesn't like white rackets, but that's the case with Novak. So now they're bringing out the Speed Legend, sadly not the original Novak specs and mold. That seems to be not happening, sadly. I do understand it from a sales point of view. If we stay on the topic of rackets, I'm testing 3 rackets currently. There's the Vulkel Vostra and the Technifiber TFX1. I talked about these in my last This Week in Tennis video. Interesting rackets for different reasons. So I'm testing these, but I'm also testing a Wilson Blade 100, which is in my bag. And really been enjoying that one. First impressions always to YouTube members and patrons. Also rackets for sale if you are a supporter of the channel. So a little bit of extra if I get help to sustain this crazy so-called business, whatever this is. Back to Madrid now. We have seen Rune struggling quite a bit, I would say. He was close to losing to Navone from Argentina in the first round. Navone is, I think, the only player I know on the tour, at least of higher ranking players. This guy is top 50, who is using the Boom Pro. I don't know if it's the Boom Pro or the Boom MP. It looks like the Boom Pro. And I'm a fan of the Boom Pro myself, especially the new one. I think that is quite clearly, the more I play with it, an improvement. And I gave it a good review. I said it's the most exciting racket in Head's lineup, despite me going to string up the Extreme Tour here, which I also like. I made more videos about those in the past and for members. But the Boom Pro is the one I feel the most connected to, has the best feel and comfort for me, and is what I've been using now lately. So if you want my personal racket update, that's the racket I'm going to take into my next tournament, the Boom Pro. Really like that frame. Still fine-tuning strings, but I have a good customization with just some weight added, and pretty happy with it. Just like very good feel. You give some extra power over more standard control rackets, and I feel like the shape of the head gives you a little bit more forgiveness, similar to kind of a Gravity or the isometric E-zone shape. So fun to see Navone play with a Boom Pro, playing well, but he did not make it happen against Rune. I saw that match actually, and he was serving for it at 6-5 in the second set. Tight first set, 6-5 second set, 30-15, makes 2 double faults. And we've all been there. And it's, yeah, you feel for the guy, right? Like, you're serving, you know you're only 2 points away on serve. You just got to make it happen. And he couldn't. So, and you know how Rune is. Like, Rune pounces. He's like a cat. Rune took that mistake and won the match 6-4. It was still a hard-fought battle throughout, but Navone couldn't quite get it done. But in the next round, Rune played another strong player, a fighter, Talon Grigspor, and Grigspor won in 3 sets. So Rune is struggling, you know, back with coach Patrick Moratoglu, a pretty polarizing figure in the tennis community for various reasons. And I'm not sure if it's the right choice or not, only time will tell that. Rublev and Fokina had a weird ending to their match. I didn't see this match, I saw only some highlights. Fokina did not seem very happy during the handshake. Not sure what went on there, if there was other things in the match, so if you know, you may comment below. Alcaraz is playing really well. He's destroying his opponents despite having an arm compression sleeve on. We've seen that before from him. I am worried about his arm, to be honest, not like laying sleepless at night, but it does seem a bit troublesome that his arm on and off seems to be an injury-prone zone. If we go to the women's side, we've had some youngsters making waves. It's more common on the women's side that we see teenagers do well. Now it's changing a bit on the men's side. We've seen Fonseca and guys like, I think Mensik is still a teenager, right? And they're doing some great stuff on the ATP Tour as well, the youngsters. But Andreeva beat Vondrousova, and I've talked about Andreeva before. I think she's a future, possibly world #1. She is a very, very talented and mentally strong player. Then we have Sara Bejlek from the Czech Republic, and the Czech Republic has such a strong, or is it Czechia you say now? Czechia has such a strong tennis tradition and history, and so many good players, especially on the women's side. So not surprised to see another one break through, and I would keep my eyes on her for the future on the WTA tours. We had a little bit of an upset also in Monteiro from Brazil beating Tsitsipas, but I think Stefanos was pretty tired after a lot of matches, winning the Monte Carlo Masters finally in Barcelona, and then yeah, the tank was maybe empty or there's some lingering injury. Pro tennis is tough. Let me know if you're going to any tournaments this summer on ATP or WTA Tour. Keen to hear from you and your experiences, and if you want to share them on tennisnerd.net, that's also great. I love having more personal experiences about going to tournaments also. On the website, we have Sebastiano Salli, who has written about the Porsche Open experience that he had, and that's great. You get like a real good kind of 360 view of how life is on the tour from spectators, organizers, and players. Let's go back to the rackets for a quick one. I've heard that Andy Murray is testing an E-zone somewhere in the UK, I think, and in training on clay courts. So that's something to think about. Will we see Andy Murray with an E-zone? Would love to see Andy play with an E-zone or anything more powerful than his current PT57A. I also love that racket, but it's maybe time to try something new. Would be cool. I doubt it though, but we'll see. That's just a nice note to end on. If you want help with racket strings, consultation, so on, you go to tennisnerd.net. There's also loads of news, personal stories, string reviews, and whatnot on that site. And that's it. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.